This is Mr. Seletisha from Loli Secondary School from Joburg South District. We're going to look at English First Additional Language, Paper 3. Particularly, we're going to look at longer transactional writings. Section B, longer transactional writings, are categorized into the following categories. We've got category A, B, C, and D. In category A, we'll be looking at the friendly letters, informal letters, and all these different kinds of letters. For an example, again, letters to the press. We'll also be looking at category B, curriculum vitae, covering letters, obituary. Then category C, that contains reviews, newspaper article, magazines, agenda, and so forth. The last category here is for the dialogues, the written interviews. But the way we classified the longer transactional, for the category section, it's for the educators to know about that. The learners only have to know about friendly letters or transactional pieces that we're going to treat today. We're going to look at the following specifically. We're going to look at one from category A, the friendly letter and the formal letter, and we're also going to look at category B, where we're going to put more efforts into obituary. Requirements for writing transactional pieces. You need to use 120 to 150 words. When we look at this one, we continue with 120 to 150 words. The next slide says category A, where we're going to look at the letters. The first letter that we're going to look at is a friendly letter. This kind of a letter is the one that we write to the parents, the relatives, and the friends, people that you know, people that you normally spend time with. That is why we call it a friendly letter. Then we'll also look at formal letters, a letter of request, application, business, maybe sympathy, or when you give thanks. Friendly letter. What is the purpose of a friendly letter? These letters are written to the people that you know. They are mainly written to express your emotions, your feelings, or maybe to congratulate, to sympathize, or if you need to advise people, that kind of a letter will fall under the friendly letter. The following things must be avoided at all costs. Slang, colloquial language, contractions, abbreviations, acronyms, innovations, and the foul language. I need to put more emphasis on the slang. Learners you have a tendency of writing slang. For an example, you write WhatsApp. You'll use the words like it was lit, it was Duke on fleek. Try to get better words. For an example, say the wedding was beautiful, the wedding, it was outstanding, and instead of saying the wedding was lit, it was a Duke on fleek. Those words are slang. We don't need to use such kind of language when you write the friendly letter. Avoid contractions, abbreviations, and acronyms. I hope by now, learners, you know the difference between abbreviation and an acronym. Remember, an acronym is also an abbreviation, but it's an abbreviation that can be pronounced in the form of a word or like a word. Abbreviation, normally, for an example, you have SABC or you have HIV, but an acronym, you'll have a word like AIDS, SAR2, and so forth. Avoid foul language because people that are going to mark those scripts or those scripts are your parents also. The format of transactional pieces or the format of creative writing is very important. You cannot run away from following the correct format. We're going to look at it. The sender's address. When you write the sender's address, let's look at it this side. This is our sender's address. it is always on the right-hand side. The sender's address, there is no punctuation, no abbreviation. It's either you use residential address or a postal address. You cannot have both of the addresses at once. You must also include the area code. Remember that number that it consists of 4 letters. If you write to overseas, it will differ. Perhaps maybe you write into the USA, it will be 5-digit, but let's concentrate in South Africa. A postal address consists only of 4-digit. And the date must be written in full. If you look at the date, 23rd August 2020, we don't have 23rd 0820. The date must be written in full. If you look at our address there are no full stop, unless you use the following. If it is a residential address, salutation, there must also be a salutation. Salutation simply means greeting. Salutation follows after a skipped line on the left-hand side. There it is, you skip a line, then you say, dear mom. There must also be this word, dear. The most common form of greeting is a French letter is dear Zwelithini or dear mom. Do not punctuate learners. Do not put a full stop at the end of mom there. Do not put a full stop. Do not even use a column. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe this comes from back in the days. I don't need to offend people. So you have dot there. This is wrong. It's a wrong format altogether. So do not include the colon there. Now the body of the friendly letter. Before you continue, just after the salutation, you leave a line open before starting with your introductory paragraph. The body of the letter usually consists of paragraph, and these paragraphs, learners, must be linked together. And with the paragraphs, or with the body, the paragraphs must be linked to one another. Avoid ending your letter with give my regards to all at home or best wishes to your family, but rather include regards in the body of the letter. Now, this is the structure of how you can structure your body. That is, I already spoke about this, dear mom. You leave a line open there, then you have first paragraph. This is the paragraph where you're going to state the reason of why you are writing that particular letter. Then you have paragraph 2, you skip a line. Paragraph 3, you skip a line. Then you must have the concluding paragraph that is usually very short. Sometimes it can even take only 1 sentence. Now the ending. Before you end, skip a line or leave a line to write your final ending. Start the ending next to the left-hand side margin. I always say to the learners, when you look at the page, there is a line. Normally, sometimes it's blue or it becomes red. You have to start writing from that next to that line. And always when you start your sentence, remember it starts with capital letters. Yours should start with capital letters, but sincerely should have small letters. We'll see how it's done here. This is our ending. Yours sincerely. The Y there takes a capital letter. The S takes a small letter. Then you have your name. With a friendly letter, it is not necessary to write surnames because it is people you're writing to, people that you know, people that you spend your day almost every day, and so forth. We will continue to the formal letters. These are examples of the kinds of formal letters that we have. We can have a letter of application, a letter to the press, letter of request, letter of sympathy, letter of complaint, letter of thanks. Those are the different kinds of letters. Before writing your formal letter, you need to read the topic. Make sure that you understand the topic. Don't just read one line without reading the whole question and think that you now understand. You need to attempt this particular topic. You need to read with understanding so that you are able to respond carefully. You must think about the kind of language that you are going to use. identify your audience. Let's say, for an example, you're writing to the principal, or writing to your teacher, or writing to people in the Department of Education. That will also assist you. Think of the different kinds of language you're going to use. And that will also help you to determine the type of letter you will be writing. What register or what style are you going to use when you write a formal letter? A formal letter, the register there, you refer to the degree of formality, must be acceptable for the audience. You cannot speak to, for an example, the principal the way you speak to your mother or your father. You cannot speak to the Minister of Education the way you speak to maybe your teacher. There will be different levels there. So the register must be correct. The letter should be clear and straightforward. It must be concise and to the point. It must be logical. Your ideas must not be muddled up. They must not be mixed up. They must be logical. Then the style of writing the formal letters. This refers to your choice of words. In literature, we'll say it's diction, your choice of words, the words that you're going to use, sentence structures, and the tone that you're going to use. Write the letter in direct, simple English. There's no need to crack your skull and think of those big words. They normally call bombastic words, so don't do that. So you need to avoid the following. Avoid a slang. Avoid colloquial language. Avoid contractions. Avoid abbreviations. Avoid acronyms. Those unsubstantiated accusations, the threats. The slang, it's so much a problem with you learners because that's what you normally do on a daily basis. So try to avoid that when you write a formal letter. The format of a formal letter is the following. Now we're going to look at the sender's address, written just after the middle of the page on the right-hand side. I always say, if you can't get the middle part of your page, there's enough time in the examination to do this, learners. You can fold the paper. It will form a crease. That's where you will be able to find the middle part of your page. And you can write your address just after it or right on top of the crease. The choice is yours so that it will make it straight or it will look straight. Sender's address is set in block format. You see, when you write on top of that crease, you'll be able to write it straight. It won't slant. No? There should be no punctuation again, like we spoke in the informal letter or the friendly letter. You don't punctuate the address also in the formal letter. Use either residential address or you use your postal address. Remember the postal address, that is that one with P.O. box. And the P.O., that is only where we allow you learners to punctuate. You say the P, then you put a dot and an O. That is the only where we see the punctuation in the address. Remember also to include the postal code. It must be there. Date must be immediately written after the address. The sender's address in the formal piece of writing is also on the right-hand side. Now, if you look there, we've got an example of a residential address and an example of a postal address. The difference is, like I said earlier on, is the P.O. box. It means this letter will be received at the post office box. This one will come to where you stay. Recipient's address now. Recipient's address is written against the left-hand margin. Remember that line I spoke about on the left-hand side. Your answer booklet will be very, very clear. You will see it's dark in color. You will write next to it. Recipient's address is written against the left-hand margin. After a line, it's skipped. Also with this address, no punctuations. Remember, put it in your mind that when you write an address, there is no punctuation there. The title, for an example, the manager, the principal, starts the recipient's address. What we are saying here, the recipient's address must start with the title there. It must have someone who's going to receive it. No abbreviation in this address. I spoke about that. Use either residential or you use a post office address. And the postal code must be there, not even forgetting the date. Oh, pardon me, let's go back. With the recipient's address, learners, we don't have a date. Remember, we have the date on the sender's address. This is what we have here. The sender's address, the recipient's address. It starts with a person who's going to receive it, the manager, the recipient. Johannesburg, the name of the company, and all these we know must also be included. How to remember the format of a formal letter. This is what you do. You remember the traffic cop. When you're just about to cross the road, there's a man there in uniform saying, stop. Then that is that one, and then these. This is where you receive. We'll explain more. Sender's address, that is where you are. You are at home. You're writing this maybe in your classroom. You're writing this at home. That is where you write your sender's address. That's the traffic cops saying you stop right here. You're not going anywhere. Then we have this one who's going to receive wherever he or she is will receive. That will be your recipient's address. The top right corner is where stop is signed, red. There it is. You are not going anywhere. You stay where you are. Red for stop, as we know. Where the letter is going to, that is where you write these details. That will be in a green format. Remember that man or that woman by the robot. Then we come to salutation, or what we call the greetings, learners. Salutation follows on the left-hand side after a line has been skipped. That is the address. You leave a line, then you write your salutation. Use a formal greeting. Dear sir, or dear madam. Do not, learners, I need to emphasize this, do not use dear sir with a slash. This is a form of a punctuation. So you need to write or. If you need to write both of them, you rather use the word or. But we discourage that. It's either you say, dear sir, dear madam. It's upon yourself to try to find out who perhaps is running a particular company. If you need to write a letter of application to a particular institution or to a particular company, who is running that particular company? Is it a male person or a female person? Do yourself that favor so that you don't lose marks in the exam. Subject heading. You have a tendency of forgetting to write this one. So we won't know, or the recipient won't know where this letter is going to, or what is it about. Skip a line before you write a subject heading. And remember, it must also be written next to the margin on the left-hand side. Subject heading is a one-liner that summarizes the content of the letter. Underline the subject heading. If it is written in small letters, underline it. If it is written in capital letters, you can still underline or leave it like that. It doesn't matter there. The body of the letter. Always remember paragraph 1. We call it introductory paragraph. It must state the reason for why you are writing that particular letter. And it is usually very brief and straight to the point. You don't have to say a lot in the introductory paragraph. Then you skip a line, you go into paragraph 2. You expand on the first idea of your introductory paragraph, why you are writing that particular letter. Each aspect of complaint needs to be mentioned and clearly explained with evidence. The last paragraph, paragraph 3, suggests for the improvement of the situation. If it was a letter of request, you will conclude accordingly there. The next aspect is ending when it comes to the formal letter, pardon me there. The most commonly used ending is yours sincerely, yours faithfully, yours faithfully. You look at it, the Y takes a capital letter, like when we were doing the friendly letter, the Y was also a capital letter. In the friendly letter, we had yours sincerely. The S was a capital letter. But in this case, we have yours faithfully. The F is also a small letter in this case. So be careful, learners. It's a penalty if you're not going to follow the format. The format has to be followed as it is. Small letter Y, small letter F. The uppercase is indicated uppercase Y, capital letter, and F is lowercase, as I've already explained. Then you sign your name, then point your name and the title beneath that. The ending says, yours faithfully, no punctuation, learners. This is your signature there. Then these are your names, J.S. Smith. Even if you write your names in full, it's still okay, and the surname there. It's not a must for you to have a title. Even if you don't have a title there, it is still correct. No one is going to penalize you. Even if you have it or you don't have it, it's still okay. Format of a formal letter, this is what we have. We already spoke about it. You'll have your sender's address there on the right-hand side. This is an example of a recipient's address by the manager. Then it goes on. This is your greetings or your salutation. The subject line there, it's also being underlined, and the paragraph. And this is how we end the formal letter. Yours faithfully, J.S. Smith and T.S. J.S. The signature there, the names and the initials there. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there. The useful sentences, learners, that you can use when you write a formal letter. We're not saying it's a must, but you can also even use this one in the exams. It's up to you. In reply to your advertisement, then you write date and the name of the paper. I would like to apply for a post. I would like shows that there is a kind of which word can I use? There is a kind of you're begging, you are asking in a formal way to say you would like. You're not forcing yourself to be replied on that particular issue. I wish to apply for admission to. Please, as a request, find a closed letter of reference from. I'm 20 years old, and so forth. Those are the lines that you can use in writing the application letter. Useful sentences continue there. You also have to state your qualifications, where you have graduated, what were your major subjects, have you ever attended, are you going to be able to attend the interview, when and where. Useful sentences, letter of inquiry. I am interested in this position. I wish to learn more about this. I would be most grateful if you could supply us with the following information. Another example, I would like to get a description of a particular something. Do you supply? You're asking. It's an inquiry. You ask. A letter of complaint, useful sentences. If you choose writing a letter of complaint in the exam, I wish to draw your attention to the situation in my country, the situation in your school, or whatsoever. I would suggest that you rectify this problem, perhaps maybe by gathering the community members to try and help you solve the problem. I suggest that immediate steps to be taken. You cannot just leave it without giving suggestion on how to solve a particular problem. I look forward to a prompt reply. I'm really dissatisfied with a particular situation in your school or your country or whatever. Now, that was the first transactional pieces we did. We're going to look at the second one, obituary. A question may arise to say, what is an obituary? An obituary is a notice of the passing of someone. someone that you know, someone that you interacted with. And with this one, you'll have target audience, known by the target audience. It also includes the causes of death as well as funeral arrangement. But I need to bring to attention the difference between obituary and a eulogy. A eulogy is a speech. When you write a speech about someone that is deceased, you're writing a eulogy. We're not asking for eulogy in the exam, but we're asking for the obituary. There's a tendency in our communities whereby people write obituary in the first person. I need to discourage that and emphasize that that is a total digression. You can not write an obituary and say, Mr. Seletisha died on this particular day. Learners, we are teaching you this aspect so that you go back to the community and help them to how to write an obituary. Do not write it in the first person. It's a total digression. You won't get anything. You'll get 5 out of 30, I promise you. The difference between an obituary and a eulogy. Please note the following. You are required to write an obituary, like I said, in the final examination. Features of an obituary. The following aspect is a must. And they must be included in your writing. Full names of the deceased. Majakatata, Michael Seletisha. That will be the full names. The date of birth, DOB, date of birth, the place of birth, the date of death. Those I'm mentioning now are the must be there. A place where that person lived before he or she died. The key survivors who survived Majakatata, those names, those people must be mentioned in the obituary. We need to know who is left behind. The relevant tribute, a tribute and a eulogy, two different things. The date, the time, and the place of funeral must also be stated in the obituary. How to write an obituary? This is what you're going to do. First point, read the question carefully. You cannot just attempt the question without reading it carefully or without an understanding. Otherwise, you'll run out of fact. Determine who the person is that has passed away. You need to know who passed away before you can start writing any obituary. Otherwise, you will lie to us. Paragraph 1, include the personal details of the person that has passed on. I've spoken about that in the previous slide. You will include full names and surname, the date of birth, the date of death, where the person was living by the time of death, the name of the organization. Mr. Slash is working for the Department of Education or worked for the Department of Education. An example here. This is an example of an obituary. I'm just going to browse through it quickly. We have lost a brilliant and selfless leader who left a legacy second to none in full name. He was born, then you write the full date, 28 May 2020, at the name of the place, Makapanstad. He moved to where the person was living. He moved to Johannesburg at the time of death in 2019. Where he passed on the date of death, then you write it. He passed on the 17th of April 2020. He will be solely and dearly missed by who? Will be solely and dearly missed by Kisaubaka Raliye. And who Kisaubaka worked for? He worked for the Department of Education. That is an example of an obituary. How to write an obituary? Paragraph 2 there. Write the tribute to the person. In paragraph 2, you include the tribute now. Paragraph 1, it was the personal detail. Paragraph 2 now, it is the tribute. A tribute is something that you say to show that you respect and admire someone or something. That is, you'll be writing a tribute. And what is the focus of a tribute? Start by describing how you are related to the deceased. Myself and Kisaubaka, We worked for the Department of Education. Describe the traits of the deceased which made an impression. You know that person better. You'll be able to write that tribute. Refer to all the good things. Why write the bad things about someone that is deceased? Please, the good things will put that particular person on the map. Let's refrain from writing bad things about someone. It's not good. Although our organization that sends tribute shall miss a quality leader, this is an example. Death should not be proud, that is taken from a novel. Death should not be proud. His untimely death has also set us back. It has robbed us of a really considerate, selfless, and dedicated leader. This is an example of how to write a tribute about a deceased person. How to write an obituary still continues in the slide. The last paragraph, refer to the people left behind. Who is left behind by the deceased person? Include the date, the time, and the place of the funeral. And last, the words of condolences. May your lovely soul rest in eternal peace. Those are some of the examples that you can write in there. And this is an example. He is survived by, you include there the name of the closest family, the children, the spouse. He will be laid to rest, on which day, the time, and the venue. It is important. People must not just run around trying to find where the funeral is. So you need to be specific when it comes to that. It is our wish to express our desire that the Almighty God, this is the last part there, when you finalize your obituary. May his soul rest in peace. There we go. Now, the third one that you're going to go through it quickly is the dialogue. What is a dialogue, learners? A dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. You talk, ne? A dialogue is a conversation between two or more there. A specific format also, it's followed there. There's a format we use to write a dialogue, and it has got the following features. Remember, a dialogue must have a scenario. If it is not a scenario, with my learners, I always say, please try to introduce your dialogue. We must know what is it that you're going to read about in the dialogue. So that follows immediately after the topic. You'll write your number 3.3 dialogue, then comes the scenario or the introduction. And this is the format it is going to follow. We have this. Sipho and Peter have not completed their English homework. They are standing behind a tree thinking of banking class. This part here, it is the scenario, or what I choose to call the introduction for the dialogue that we're going to read about. It's between Sipho and Peter. And this is what happens. Sipho followed by a colon. Learners, a colon and a colon only. Colon and a colon only, please. Let's have this thing. Then you have Sipho's speech following the colon. Then when Peter has to respond, you need to, I wish we skipped a line there. We skip a line. Remember, some people's handwriting or learners' writing, it's big, so it might be squashed. That is the reason why we need you to skip lines in between so that your handwriting is easy to read. Remember, if we can't read as markers, if you can't read your handwriting, that is self-penalty. We'll try to figure out what you wrote, but if you can't, we will have to move on to the next script. So try to skip a line. It will make your dialogue look a bit neat. Then that is Peter. But look at Peter there. Before Peter says something, there are words there. We call these words the stage direction, or how to say something. They are written inside the bracket, looking around. You also get this kind of questions in paper 2, the literature. What advice would you give, for an example, Sipho to say the following words? And then we call those words stage direction. And they are put first before the speech. You cannot write these things at the end of the speech. So you need to write them first, and they must be written in the brackets. Rubric. I'm not going to discuss about the whole of it. I'm just going to give you ideas. This is the rubric the markers are going to use at the end of the year. Firstly, the markers will make sure that it is 30 marks. The rubric is of 30 marks. Experience taught me some markers, normally they mix up the rubrics. You find that instead of using a 30 mark, you have a 20 mark rubric or you have a 50 mark rubric. But because its marking session is more advanced, it's formal, I don't know how to explain, it's more advanced, we will realize that the rubric that was used to mark a particular piece, it was a wrong one. So for transactional pieces, it's a 30 mark rubric. And if you look at this particular rubric, it is divided into section and colors. When you color your rubric like this is particularly for the educators now. But your educators must show you how they allocated a particular mark for you. Why are they saying you got 10 out of 30 in a particular piece? This is what will normally happen. We start from the right, we move to the left. So you look at the purple color. The purple colors on top, they deals with response and ideas. They'll allocate the mark firstly for the content. And our content ranges from these until there. If you got a mark like 83, it means you are between 15 and 18. And a content mark must be allocated first before you can come to language, style, and editing. Because a learner can be able to pass a particular transactional piece first without even allocating the language, style, and editing. Because once you allocate a mark for the language, style, and editing, these might influence the mark you're going to give for the content. Because as educators, when a script is full of a red pen, we think that a learner has failed already. But no, we need to listen to the learner's voice. You allocate a mark from 0 to 4 until 15 to 18. The mark allocation here, it's 18 for the content. And then for the language, style, and editing, we've got 12. Is my calculation correct? To give us 30. So then you can be able to use your rubric if you color it like this. And that brings us to the next slide, of which is the last one. Remember, learners, writing is a learned skill. So you need to write. Write every day. It's a creative writing. If you write every day, learners, we will listen to your voice as the markers. Try to write every day, and when you write every day, it improves your spelling, it improves your thinking skill, and you'll even learn to write better if you practice writing every day. I thank you.